At 1:13 in the morning, a radio that had been disconnected for 22 years suddenly turned itself on. It did not play music. It began reading tomorrow's news. The voice was calm, female, and strangely familiar. It announced the correct date, followed by a date exactly 24 hours ahead. The first headline described a collision in Greyhaven Harbor. At 6:40 the next morning, passenger ferry 12 would be struck by an unmanned cargo vessel. Lena called the harbor authority. The operator listened politely, then asked how she could possibly know about an accident that had not happened. By 5:50, Lena was driving through heavy rain toward the harbor. She had no proof, no authority, and less than an hour to stop a disaster only she believed was coming. Ferry 12 was already boarding. Hundreds of commuters moved across the terminal, while Lena tried to convince security that the ship could not be allowed to leave. When they refused, Lena pulled the manual emergency lever beside the boarding bridge. Alarms sounded, steel barriers closed, and the ferry remained trapped at the terminal. At exactly 6:40, an unmanned cargo vessel emerged through the rain, crossed the ferry's normal route, and crashed into an empty loading pier. Nobody on Ferry 12 was injured. By sunrise, videos of Lena stopping the departure had spread across the city. The impossible prediction was no longer hers alone. The following night, Lena returned to the archive. At 1:13, the radio came alive again, but the news had changed. Because Ferry 12 had been delayed, a fuel tanker had entered the Eastern Channel instead. At 9:20, it would explode beside the city's main power station. Lena understood the rule. The broadcast did not describe a fixed future. Every attempt to change tomorrow created a different tomorrow. The tanker was intercepted before it reached the power station. The explosion never happened, but the harbor closed for inspection and fuel deliveries across Greyhaven stopped. Within hours, buses stopped, generators ran low, and long lines formed outside charging stations. Saving one future had created another crisis. Each new bulletin reacted to the choices made the day before. A fire became a flood. A missing child became a train accident. Every solution moved danger somewhere else. People gathered outside the archive, demanding answers about jobs, illnesses, relationships, and death. Everyone wanted to know tomorrow, but nobody agreed on what should be changed. On the fourth night, Dr. Adrian Vale arrived with government authority, armed security, and a promise to place the radio under scientific control. Vale said the broadcast could prevent disasters, stabilize markets, and end uncertainty. Lena warned him that every question forced the future to reorganize itself. Vale connected the radio to a national prediction network. Instead of waiting for one bulletin, his team asked for weather, prices, elections, and military movements. At 1:13, the radio answered every question at once. Dozens of voices began reading different versions of the following day, each one contradicting the others. Across Greyhaven, digital clocks began losing seconds. Some moved forward, others moved backward. For several minutes, no two public clocks showed the same time. Lena saw herself walk past a glass door 3 seconds before she actually moved. Then the reflection turned and looked back at her. Similar reports spread through the city. People remembered conversations that had not happened. Commuters saw trains arrive twice. Streets briefly appeared in two different versions. Beneath the overlapping voices, Lena found a low mechanical tone. It matched a frequency stored in the archive under a project abandoned 30 years earlier. The project was called Helix. Its purpose was not to predict the future. It was designed to send a small packet of information backward through time. A prototype transmitter still existed beneath Greyhaven, built into an abandoned power tunnel. The city's electrical grid had unknowingly kept it alive for decades. The archive radio was only the receiver. Somewhere 24 hours ahead, the Helix transmitter was sending the broadcast back to Lena. Before Lena could disconnect the network, every screen turned white. A final bulletin announced that at 11:58 the following night, Greyhaven would disappear from every external system. Vale believed the city was facing an attack. He ordered the Helix system powered to maximum strength so it could reveal more of the future. The stronger the transmitter became, the less stable the broadcast grew. The archive filled with thousands of possible tomorrows, all competing to become real. Lena isolated one voice beneath the noise. It was older, exhausted, and unmistakably her own. The woman in the future was trying to speak directly to her. The future Lena said, "Do not ask what happens next. Ask what your questions are causing." Helix did not simply observe possible futures. Each request pulled several futures closer together, forcing incompatible events into the same moment. At maximum power, the system would collapse every version of Greyhaven into a repeating 24-hour loop. To the outside world, the city would simply vanish. Lena told Vale to shut Helix down. He refused. With only hours remaining, he believed abandoning the future was more dangerous than controlling it. Lena copied the underground plans and left the archive through a maintenance exit. The Helix transmitter had to be disabled at its source. At 11:30, Lena entered the abandoned power tunnels beneath Greyhaven. Above her, clocks across the city began skipping entire minutes. The city above began splitting between moments. Daylight flashed through the midnight rain. Empty buildings appeared beside crowded versions of themselves. At the center of the tunnel, Lena found Helix, 3 enormous metal rings rotating around a column of white light. Her portable radio activated. The future Lena warned that simply cutting the power would trap the city between 2 unfinished timelines. The loop had to be closed before it could be broken. Lena needed to let the final message travel backward, then remove the phase core at the exact moment of transmission. Vale arrived with security and ordered Lena away from the machine. He had seen a future in which Greyhaven survived and believed Helix was the only reason. Lena showed him the truth. The future he had seen was only one of thousands, and it was already disappearing as they spoke. With 40 seconds remaining, Vale lowered his hand and allowed Lena to pass. For the first time, he chose not to ask the future for an answer. Lena opened the transmitter channel and spoke into the past. Tomorrow is not waiting for you. Tomorrow is what your choices create. At 11:58, the message completed its journey. Lena released the locking mechanism and pulled the phase core from the center of Helix. Every clock in Greyhaven stopped for 1 second. Then they all resumed together. The duplicated streets vanished, the rain returned, and the city remained exactly where it had always been. The next morning, Lena returned to the archive. At 1:13, the old radio clicked once and whispered, "There is no news from tomorrow." Then it went silent forever.